Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Through the Whistle Sports. I am Campbell, and I'm here with my partner Joseph. And today we're just going to get right into it. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And our first order of business, we're going to be talking about the Western Conference Finals. So my prediction at the start of the series was that it was supposed to go to 7 games, and then the Mavericks were going to win in 7 games. I was
That
very
didn't age.
wrong.
That didn't
Um,
age very well.
it didn't age very well, and I mean, I can't change that now. I think that the Warriors are gonna win in 5. It could even be a sweep. What do you think about that?
So mine was Warriors in six, and I honestly what I expected to happen was Warriors win at home, Mavs come home and win at home,
Yeah.
and then they go back to the Warriors territory and the Warriors win, go up 3-2, and they just secure it back in Mavs Stadium. But play. Kevon Looney is really good, and
Yes.
I was not expecting Andrew Wiggins to play that well. Um, but when your team is made up of like nothing but wing defenders and then Luca and
Yep.
like Dinwiddie and Brunson are the only other people who don't fit that. It's like not the best constructed team, right? Like it has good defense, but like when you have no big man other than Dwight Powell, who is literally coming in just to do the jump ball and then he's getting benched, it's like what do you expect? How far can you really expect to go? Now, what I can back you here on taking the Mavs here though, because after seeing them beat what was supposedly the title favorites, like up until that point, they won 60 games. There's only like two teams in NBA history being like, I believe the Spurs and the was the Spurs and the 73 and 9 Warriors. Those are the only two teams who have won 60 games and not made the finals, right? When you see a team beat them, you're like, they're really good. They just beat the title favorites. They must be able to continue going. No. The Warriors have this style of offense that is just so good and so it requires so much intelligence on the defensive side of the ball. And even if you're smart enough, sometimes you just don't have the personnel to stop them. Have so many good players and so many scores, and they take tough shots. Half the time, Klay Thompson is taking a fading three.
Yeah. And during the playoff series, I watched the Pelicans and Suns series very closely, as I'm sure you did. Um, I honestly thought the Pelicans could have taken that.
I
Uh,
think we looked like the better team, but Chris
yes.
Paul had a perfect game.
Yep. And you
Like Chris
guys,
Paul looked worn out in
yeah,
the Mavs series. So you know what, Mavs fans, you can thank Brandon Ingram. You
yeah,
think you can thank CJ, you can thank Herb, you can thank those people for wearing out Chris Paul. Now Devin Booker missed a few games and we didn't capitalize on that. But honestly, I think we would have done better if Booker had played. It's wounded soldier syndrome or something like that, where when you have a player go out your team comes together and they're like, okay, we have our best player missing. We need to come together. We need to put it all out there because if we lose, we are all going to get flamed because it is not Devin Booker's fault that we lost. Right? So they came together and they won when Booker was down. I believe he won one of the 3 games when Booker missed,
yep,
which just was not good enough. It wasn't.
yeah. Unless if you're the 76ers, most teams that have missed some players, they've still done drastically well. I mean, there were takes that the Bulls could have won against the Bucks in 7 games once Middleton went down, and then the Bucks went to win 3 straight, and they took the champion or one of the championship favorites, Boston Celtics, to 7 games,
And
and
I don't think the Heat lost more than I think they lost twice without Kyle Lowry. I think that's what it was. which
Well,
is just insane
yes.
because Kyle Lowry has missed nearly the entire playoffs, right? He got injured in like that first series with the Hawks, and then he came back for a few games and he got injured again. He came back like he's been all over the place. And teams have just done really well without their when players get injured, which is why I believe in like the wounded soldier theory or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, that teams do better without their best player when they're injured because um, just promotes that like it promotes camaraderie.
Yeah. I think that's true. Um, and like,
With that being said,
yeah, the
the
Miami
series
Heat.
is over.
Um,
Series is over.
yeah. I don't think we have really much else to talk about that. The series is over. I expect it to go to
Well,
five
I knew it.
games.
I'm sorry. I knew it was over in game two
I
because we had that Jalen Brunson game. We had
yeah
a Luka Doncic game, and they still lost.
yeah
Do you know how devastating it is when you have like the compilation of two elite performances from your two best players, and then you still manage to lose because the other team just lights you up from three? It's
yeah
devastating. That is devastating.
yeah. I think once the Mavericks inevitably get eliminated, we're gonna have a lot to talk about them and what they're gonna do in the off season because I expect big changes, and I think Doncic should also expect big changes. Now that they've gotten to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, it is something to talk about though because they got to pay Jalen Brunson.
Yep.
They also need to go out there and make other acquisitions. And if Jalen Brunson is getting 22, 23, $24 million offers from teams like the Pistons, teams like the Magic, all the teams like the Pacers, all those bottom feeder teams who could really use a scoring, playmaking guard like Brunson, it begs the question, are they even going to be able to go out there and look for that big man that we both think they desperately need? Like if they have to pay Brunson, then their team, their core is locked in, and then things are gonna get sticky real quick for the Mavs. Um, and I think there is a way out of it because we all know sign and trades, they don't have to benefit the other team, right?
Yep.
It's a salary dump. Usually it's a salary dump, right? The Bulls signed and traded for Lonzo Ball by dumping Tomas Satoransky and Garrett Temple, right? That's an insane. That's if that trade happened mid-season, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, but the team that didn't light it up from three in the same way the Warriors did was the Boston Celtics. They're down 2-1. Game four is tonight, so probably a little bit behind as like this is probably coming out after game four.
Yep.
And if they're down 3-1, do you think the Boston Celtics can that 3-1 comeback?
Um, I don't think so because that they don't have the home court advantage. Um, even though Miami is such a weird place to play if you're on the road. It seems like one of the toughest places to play on the road, despite like the fans just don't seem as rambunctious as other ones. Like you look
I
at
think they're more
Philadelphia,
respectful.
yeah, they're
They're
more
more respectful.
respectful than like Toronto, Philadelphia, places like that. If they,
Warriors
yeah,
fans.
Warriors too. I think that if they lose both of their games in Boston, I think that it's over.
Okay. I think okay. I think the best home court advantages are still remaining in the playoffs. Dallas has very good home court advantage. I think the Warriors have very good home court advantage. I think the Heat have very good home court advantage. I think the Celtics have insane, like underrated home court advantage. I haven't been to a Celtics game despite living near Boston,
Yeah,
but they that arena rides and dies for their players, right? So I think they can come away after tonight 2-2. But one thing in specific I wanted to talk about is inconsistency from the Jays. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum can never have a good night on the same night.
yeah.
Now, when they do, they literally win by 30 every time. But it is so rare that I believe it's happened once, maybe twice this entire playoff run,
Yeah, I
right?
think that What was it? Jalen Brown had a 40-point game, didn't he?
But it was the worst 40-point game I have ever
Yeah.
seen. He also had like 7 turnovers.
Yeah.
That is what happened in this past game. It was the turnover game.
Yeah, and he had like a 40.9 rebound game, and that was. They still lost, I believe. Yeah, they still lost that
Yes, so
game.
they should have won that game. Do you know why they lost the game? It's because they had like 27 turnovers, I believe the number was.
Yeah.
21, maybe. Um, they won in every other stat category. They out rebounded them, they outshot them, they outscored, like they did almost everything right. They out free throwed them. Like everything was going well for the Celtics. But the one that they didn't have was fast break points or points off turnovers as well. Because what would happen is they would dribble down the court and they'd be dribbling it at their head. I I am terrible at basketball. I know you don't dribble the ball above your shoulder. You got to keep it below your waist. And
Yeah.
what are they doing? They're reverting back to midseason Celtic form. And you know what? We've seen it once every series. Against the Bucks, they reverted back to midseason Celtics form for like game 5, I believe it was, where they got where they it was a super close game, but like at halftime they sucked.
Yeah.
Um, I don't like the fact that Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown can never have good games at the same time. And like I don't want to go back to that, oh, trade Jalen Brown, because you shouldn't trade Jalen Brown unless you get a really good offer. But like, you know what they could really use? They could use like some playmaking. I
Yeah.
know, like they traded for Derek White, but Derek White has done nothing but put up stinkers in the playoffs. Bro is shooting like the worst percentage from the 3-point line I have ever seen in an entire playoff run. Like other than that one series where Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday combined for like 4 total made threes, I have never seen such poor shooting performances from someone who was brought in to be a 3 and D player.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm trying to remember. My initial prediction was Heat in 6, right? Heat in 6 or 7. I believe that's what
Yeah.
it was, and you had Celtics in 7.
Hmm.
Because we both split. Yeah, that's what happened. Um, Jimmy Butler's playing tonight, I believe. I think that's what they said. I
The other thing, I forgot to mention that
Yes,
Jimmy Butler went out in the second half. They were down 30 and they couldn't make up 30 points. Even though
they
everything was going their way.
yeah, they almost did. It was a
They didn't.
blowout,
They
and
didn't.
they didn't get there.
Like, credit to Kyle Lowry. You know how much veteran leadership it takes to keep your team in a game like that when your number one option, who has literally been the entire offense for since he got there, he's been the entire offense. Like, let's be honest,
Yeah,
Jimmy Butler is that offense. Um, just credit to players for stepping up. Max Strus, Tyler Hero. You know, Bam Adebayo has been beyond mid this playoffs. Like, I have a friend who is he is in love with Bam Adebayo. Um, just like the most random player to love, but it's fine. He likes the Heat culture, and he says that Bam Adebayo is a top 5 center by far. But this playoffs, Bam Adebayo has not looked like a top 5 center. He has looked average at best.
he got locked up by Embiid most of the games that Embiid played.
Yes. Which
Um,
is why there's currently this whole discussion about is it worth paying centers, but I think that's a topic for another day.
yeah,
Um, the Heat have this, right? Like they have home court advantage. They lost it. They came back to Boston and they took it. The Celtics have not lost 2 games in a row this entire playoff run. So I am confident they will win tonight in the Garden, right? Now it is whether or not they will go down 3-2. That is what's concerning to me because they now have to go back to Miami after they go tie. If they tie it 2-2, they now have to go back to Miami. And I don't, I don't. It's gonna take like a game where JT and Jalen Brown are on the same page and they are both on fire. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm not sure if I trust that. I'm not sure if I can predict that to happen. They've been so inconsistent. 1 for 7 from three from Jason Tatum last night, I believe, or 2 nights ago, which is just unacceptable.
Yeah. And role players always better play better once they're at home. A great example is Max Strus.
Another
Um,
great example is Tyler Hero, who is
yes,
like I've
he
said it before. I've said it before here, like when we were previewing the series,
yeah,
Tyler Hero plays way better at home.
and he's
And
out tonight with a groin injury.
is he really? Yeah,
Yes,
I think Celtics win tonight then.
yeah, I
I think Celtics win tonight.
I
And if
expect
they
the
don't, they
Celtics too.
deserve to lose the series.
Yeah,
If they don't win, they deserve to lose the series. Because when you have an injured Jimmy Butler, when you have Tyler Hero, who's their second option and one of their only shot creators, not playing, if you cannot clamp Max Strus, Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Smart, you do not deserve to have that.
yeah,
Max Strus is a great role player. He's in like that Seth Curry mold, right? Like that shot creator, except he's like light. He's not even on that level. If he's not clamped, if he's not clamped, Marcus Smart doesn't deserve that Defensive Player of the Year. But do you think we should get Duncan Robinson minutes tonight?
I I don't,
No
and
Tyler Hero.
with I think with Tyler Hero being out, I think that he'll come in. However, during this series, as well as the few minutes that he had against the 76ers, all that I saw for his shots were straight misses. And his defense is why he's not playing. And I saw that happen. He let a player go right past him on defense for a layup. I don't think that he'd be a help, even with the 3 point shots that he could occasionally make. And Max Strus is much better with that. I I
Right.
I expect to see Duncan Robinson minutes tonight, considering that Tyler Hero is out. However, I don't think that he should be playing a lot, if any.
I actually have a different take. I think he should start and I think he should get 6 minutes, and then you pull him. If he is not putting up defensive effort, if he is not absolutely draining threes, then you pull him. And then if your team, you visibly see, if you're Spolstra and you see your team not able to put up points, if you guys go on like a 3, 4, 5 minute scoring drought, that is when you need a guy like Duncan Robinson. Now, Tyler Hero has been that guy where, like,
Yes.
if your team goes on a scoring drought, you put him in. But when you're down that many guys, if Max Strus has an off night, you're gonna need Duncan tonight.
Yeah.
Do I expect? Should he get minutes if the offense is rolling without him? No, no, because if the offense is rolling without him, then the defense is gonna take hits if you put him in.
Yeah. And I've watched during this series and the last series Duncan Robinson. I watched him take like probably 7 shots total, and one of them was a layup, and I mean he made that. The rest of them were 3 point shots. He missed every single one, besides that one game
He's been
against
better this
Atlanta.
series. He's
Yeah,
been better this series. In game 2, he shot 3 for 7 from three, if my brain is correct. But like if you're shooting 3 for 7 from three and Max Strus is also shooting 3 for 7 from three but putting up defensive effort, it's like why are you even here? Now if the Heat get eliminated, there's a whole nother conversation about what do you do with Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson, because if you look at that team, those are like the two weak spots, and they're combined for 45 million.
yep,
If you can get rid of those guys and bring in a Zach LaVine, if DeMar DeRozan asks out, if you can get like different players than the people you're paying a ton of money, like you're gonna have to extend Max Strus, you're gonna have to extend Tyler Hero. These are players who are gonna need money, and right now your money is being wasted on players who are not impacting the game nearly as much as players who are impacting the game a ton and are making less than 6 million.
yeah. And Lowry had his best game of the entire playoffs. Um, 2 days ago. That he had his best game 2 days ago, and every other game that he's played, and he hasn't been injured, he's played horribly. And it might be because the injury that he had, because he played horrible in one half against the 76ers, and then he went back to the locker room. But yeah, that's gonna be something to note. Is Kyle Lowry is what do the Heat do with him if they do anything with him? Do anything with him at all during this offseason? That's gonna be interesting to see.
Um, I don't have anything left to say.
Yeah. I guess.
We move on to eliminated playoff teams.
Yeah.
So let's quickly just run through the teams we have talked about at length already, right? We've talked about Philly a ton because
Yes.
obviously we have to extend James Harden. We've talked about Chicago a ton because obviously they don't have interior defense and we like the idea of Rudy Gobert, do we?
Yeah, I do too.
I like that idea. We also like the idea of Matisse Thybulle. Um, we've talked about the Nets a good amount, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say
I think
so.
we can go in a little bit more on them. I don't think there's much to talk about with the Pelicans. I think you run it back, you hope Zion's better, you draft well this year, you have a lottery pick because the Lakers gave you theirs in the Anthony Davis trade. If things like that work out, I think you are a top 5 seed next year.
Yeah.
Dallas is not eliminated yet. Utah, we've talked about them at length.
Yes.
Um,
Toronto.
yeah.
I think that they run it back.
Think they should. Now, the question is, do you think they go for a big man or no? Because I have seen the argument both ways. One argument is, hey, in the modern NBA, you don't pay a big man, but sure, you do need a taller player to go up there and get boards for you. Because if you don't have that, what's going to happen is when you get to the playoffs, guys like Joel Embiid are going to dominate you.
Yeah.
The Nikola Jokic's are going to dominate you. Now, could we see them potentially draft a guy? I don't think so because, in my opinion, there are 3 centers in this class. It's Mark Williams, Jalen Duren, and it is Chet Holmgren. Chet is going top 3,
Number one.
most likely. Um, Jalen Duren is going top 10, and Mark Williams is a Hornet. It's a lock. Like, they need a
Yeah.
center. Mark Williams is going to be that guy because he's going to fall right to him. Don't think you can take you can't unless you're going to move up for Duren, you're not getting any of those guys, right? So if they're replacing it in free agency, I don't like any of the options in free agency because that hurts your switchability.
Yeah.
Anyone left in free agency cannot switch onto the perimeter. I would rather keep the all 6'8", 6'9" lineup and just roll with that than potentially risk ruining the great defense you currently have because your guy can't switch onto the perimeter. The Toronto Raptors would be a nightmare for the Mavericks
Yeah. I
because Luka would get clamped.
Yeah, the Raptors are going to be interesting because they have a lot of questions, but at the same time, it feels like those questions are like answering themselves as time goes on. Scotty Barnes
agree.
is going to be an all-star next year. That's my prediction.
Ooh.
Yes.
Next year?
Yes. Next year.
Wow.
Yep, that's my prediction. He'll be playing in the All-Star game next year.
Not ready to make predictions for next year. I got to think about that more,
Yeah.
but that is a hot take and I don't hate it.
Yep. So I was just looking 2 steps ahead, but I think he'll be an all-star. I think they've got to address Fred VanVleet, and not by getting rid of him, of course, because he's a great player, great 3-point shooter, can bring good defense, but
I think he's replaceable.
I think
He's replaceable.
and plus with his injuries that he had this year, it
And with the
worries me.
emergence of Gary Trent,
Yes.
maybe you're looking like, hey, we can bring somebody else in. Like this draft, there are a lot of guards who are gonna fall later, right? The Ty Washingtons, the Kennedy Chandlers, those guys have great potential. And when you already have that elite defense around them, it's like, okay, maybe we can afford to bring in one of these short or super high potential shot creating guards. But I think he's gonna end up staying because I think Masai, who's their GM,
Yeah.
really respects him, right? He's a G leaguer turned all star. That's not something you see every day.
Yep. Um but yeah, I feel like the Raptors, they seem to be set to have playoffs, not success, but playoff appearances for the next few years. I don't
I
believe
agree.
that people expected them to be a rebuilding team, and with the roster that you look at now, I don't. I think that they're better than that.
You know what I
And
expect? I expect the same thing that happened with Kawhi to happen with another superstar in the coming 5 years. I expect there to be a small market superstar who asks to go to LA, and the team says, "Screw you, we're sending you to Canada," and the Raptors are going to capitalize on that success. I get Toronto is not a big market because Canada is nowhere near as big in Canada. Basketball is nowhere near as big in Canada as it is in the United States. But like Raptors are a good franchise. Like we talk about poverty teams, right? The
yeah,
Kings, the Nets, the Clippers. We talk about those franchises who literally have superstars and yet fail to make the playoffs. The Raptors do it without them. They
yep.
have a they have a top 5 head coach. They have a top 2 general manager. They have everything you need for success. They just don't have that superstar. Now you think Scotty Barnes can be that guy, right?
I think so, especially after Rookie of the
I
Year.
I don't know. I'm not confident that he can be the number one option on a championship team
I don't think
someday.
so
I'm
either.
not there. I'm not there yet. I think he can be an all-star, but I
Yep.
think we're always going to be looking for like eventually down the line. I'm not saying this next year. You're saying that. I don't think he I think you're going to need that superstar player. And maybe it's Donovan Mitchell.
That could actually be an interesting choice.
I would love that because Donovan Mitchell's whole thing is, oh, he doesn't have defensive intensity. He's a great shot creator, but he's invisible on the other side of the ball. You put him in the Raptors system, I bet they've turned Fred VanVleet into an
Yeah.
okay defender. You get a Donovan Mitchell, I don't know how Donovan Mitchell and Fred VanVleet work together.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna ask
I
you.
think the idea would be you move on from Fred VanVleet and you package whatever, like a three-way deal. You send away Fred VanVleet, you get Donovan Mitchell. Um,
Yeah, so I was
Maybe you
wondering.
have to throw in some draft capital, but
Yeah.
I think that could work really well for future of the Raptors.
So just for note, are you saying Van Fleet to a third party team or to the Jazz?
So the Jazz, if they want to keep it rolling, they have the option of taking Van Vliet, but I
Yeah.
guarantee you they won't. And I'm suggesting you send Van Vliet to a third party
Yep.
team. Maybe it's the Denver Nuggets, and you send
Yeah.
Michael Porter Jr. to the Jazz, right? Give him a new home. You give Jokic some help. Maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's the Grizzlies, maybe it's the Timberwolves, because the Timberwolves, we're going to get into them in a minute, but I don't think D'Angelo Russell is the answer for them.
No, I expect him to be gone
I actually think
at
that's a
some
good
point.
transition.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
D'Angelo
transition.
Russell, not the answer at point guard for the Timberwolves. And he struggled in the playoffs, and I get Cat wanting to be with his homie. What
He
you're
played
paying him 30
horribly.
million and he was horrible. He was really bad. And
Yeah.
like there are some people on TikTok that I follow and they were making the argument that he is going to be an all-star next year. And not only do I not think that, but I think he's going to get traded. I miss D'Lo on the Nets, but that is just not who he is anymore. It's
Yeah.
not. And you have two superstars, in my opinion, and Carl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards played really well. And while Cat struggled, I think he's going to learn from this playoffs, and I think he's going to come back in the next few years and be better. Um, but Anthony Edwards has like top five player potential. And when you have a guy on your roster that has top five player potential, you better try your hardest to draft perfectly. You better try your hardest to manage your salary cap really well before you have to pay them your max
Yeah.
extension. Because what happens is once you pay them their max extension, you don't have the option of salary dumping players and then going out and paying other guys. Right? Nobody wants to play in Minnesota, and we know this. But you better make good moves with the assets you have. Malik Beasley, I believe, was in trade talks
Yes, he
with
was.
certain teams. That's a player who I see as expendable. Patrick Beverly is a great defensive leader, and I think he can be your starting point guard, and you don't have to be too mad about that. D'Angelo Russell, if you can move him for a perimeter defender, a wing guy, whether it's maybe you move him to the Clippers, really like that fit. If you move him for like a Norman Powell and a Luke Kennard, that kind of move, just to get yourself some more wing defenders, shooters, to surround Carl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. So and going off of Anthony Edwards, I think that he's the face of the Timberwolves franchise. I don't think that Carl Anthony Towns is, nor should he ever have been, because when he got into the league, um, and he got to the Timberwolves, people were like, "Oh, he's gonna mature, he's gonna have good success, and he'll be the face of the franchise." He just hasn't matured that much, and I don't think that he's ready to take on that role as face of the franchise as much as I think Anthony Edwards, in the next coming years, is gonna be able to. Um, what's your take on that? Because I think that Ant should be the face of their franchise.
Ant has that dog in him.
Yes.
Like it's a joke,
Yes.
but also at the same time, Ant is a playoff performer.
Yes.
He's like that Jimmy Butler mold where like he is good in the regular, he's better in the regular season than Jimmy Butler, but when it comes playoff time, he steps it up. Now, were the Grizzlies maybe an easier matchup than people will give it credit for, considering they have like a coach who doesn't have a ton of playoff experience yet? They were playing Steven Adams because you had to have him out there to guard Cat, but also could feast on those slow-footed bigs, right?
Yeah.
We saw him dunk on Yutu Watanabe, and that was like a clip all over Instagram for like months. Think Ant is the face of the franchise, but I disagree that Cat was never able to be. I simply think he was not good enough as a player to be a face of a franchise. Like you have those guys who are like solid faces of the franchise. It's like the top 10 players, right? And in the past, if it's either a top 10 player or a super young budding top 10 player, right? The Jason Tatums, the Luka Doncic's, the Devin Bookers, those are the only guys who you look at and you're like, yeah, they can be a face of the franchise. It's either that or like the Kawhis, right? It's either you're a
Yep.
top 10 guy or you're super young and you're going to be a demon one day, right? I think Cade is that guy. I think Chet could be that guy. I think there are like guys in this draft who have potential to be that guy. But do I think Pat ever had the potential to be? Yes. Do I think he's lived up to that potential?
No.
No. It's the same thing with Aiton. He was compared to the general, and he just wasn't, or the admiral. I can never get their nicknames correct. He was compared to him, and he just never lived up to that.
Yeah. I. So who do you think that the Timberwolves should try to get with the roster that they have now, assuming that D'Angelo Russell gets put into trade packages, possibly Malik Beasley as well. Who do you think that they could go out and get? Because you've said a few names like wing defenders like Norman Powell, Luke Kennard. Do you think that they should try to get any big name players, like any all stars that are on the trading block?
If
What do you think of
Levine
that? Levine,
leaves, if
yes.
Levine leaves, no, no, don't go for Levine because Levine. I don't know if
Yeah.
he got drafted there, and I don't know if you ever saw the lip reading of what happened when he got drafted to the Timberwolves.
No, I
Dropped
didn't.
his head, and he goes, "Not even kidding. Like that is a bad lip reading."
Huh.
It or like a good I keep saying bad lip reading. It was a good lip reading. But if Levine leaves and Lonzo's out for the season, DeRozan is going to be put into so many trade talks. If you can go out there and you can throw together a pick package for DeRozan and Malik and throw in Malik Beasley, I think that's good. Um, John Collins. You John Collins is a guy who's like an in-betweener who I'm not all that confident has that high of a ceiling, right? He's kind of been stagnant as far as improvement for the last few seasons, but I think that could have to do with his team
Yeah.
because the Hawks just don't have that good of a defensive scheme, and I don't think they have a defensive leader. Cam, wow, his name is blanking.
Uh.
Uh, Guy who got traded
Cam.
to the Knicks. Cam Reddish,
Oh yes. Yeah.
supposed to be that guy. He's supposed to be that defensive wing leader. He simply hasn't been, right? They had to trade him to the Knicks because he wanted out. He didn't feel like he was getting an opportunity. Um, but John Collins is a guy who, if we're transitioning to the Hawks as well, I expect to be moved this offseason
Yeah.
because he's making like 25, 27 million. He hasn't done a whole lot in his career. Obviously, he had that one playoff run, but he was like the first pick that the Hawks made when they started their rebuild, right? They had that Al Horford team. They had that Jeff Teague, that super four all stars, whatever it may be. They got eliminated by LeBron. Um, John Collins was like the first selection made for that rebuild. He was there when Kent Bazemore was the guy. He was there when Quinn Cook was, or whatever his name was the guy. Um, I think he could get moved simply because they need more wing or guard defense. And I think D'Lo could be moved for John Collins simply because it kind of fits what both teams need, right? The Timberwolves need maybe a more athletic defensive potential guy, right? But I just don't. Maybe a Chris Boucher in free agency. Like, there's just not a
Yes.
lot the Timberwolves can do unless they move on from D'Lo, move on from Malik, and they rebuild that entire bench around Cat and um, Anthony Edwards, which is what I think they should probably do. I just question how far you're going to get with that. Do we both agree that the Bucks should run it back? Or
With
should they
the team
with
that
their
they have.
trio?
With
With their
their.
trio, yes. Drew, Chris Middleton, and Giannis.
Yeah. Um. I think so, and I'll tell you why. I think absolutely. The Bucks could have won Game 7 because I still expected the series to get to 7 games, even if Middleton was playing, and I expected the Bucks to take that. They could easily have been in the Eastern Conference Finals. I won't say that Middleton is the sole reason why the Celtics are in it and not the Bucks, but I think that they should run it back, especially with the emergence of Bobby Portis. He definitely likes the Bucks culture.
See, they have to pay him.
Yeah,
They're gonna have to pay
and I
him.
don't think that's going to be interesting to see because he has said that he likes the Bucks culture. He likes playing with Giannis. He thinks that this team makes him play better. And from watching his game, I he got cocky in round 2 a lot, especially after his injury. But I think that depending on some of the bench players and what happens to them, I think that they should run it back.
Okay, here's the thing. I think he took a pay cut last year, and I'm not sure if he's going to do it again. I believe he took a 5 mil plus 5 mil, right? I believe that was the deal, and it's a player option. Um, if he wants to go get paid, he's going to go get paid. There's going to be a team that's going to give Bobby Portis some solid money. Um, I think Drew, Chris Middleton, and Giannis is like a locked in core. I think once Drew and Chris Middleton regress to a point of no return, I think it is over for Giannis in Milwaukee. They
I
don't have draft capital.
yeah,
They traded it all for Drew. And you know what? That was a good decision because it got you that championship. But do you trust Jordan Nwora to be like a third option on a championship level team? I really like Jordan Nwora, by the way, but I think he's like an above average role player. Um, the tune of like Norman Powell, but like a little bit bigger, a bit better defensively. I don't Terrence Ross kind of guy, but I don't think he's much more than that. And their bench right now is really old, right?
yeah,
Like they were giving George Hill solid playoff minutes.
and he played
What?
horribly.
Is terrible, but
Yeah,
like George Hill should not be the guy that you're giving bench minutes to, right? Wesley Matthews is 35, 33.
yeah, I think so.
Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton are your only young bench pieces. Javon Carter, I believe, is 29. He's upper 20s. Serge Ibaka, who you traded for at the deadline, didn't get minutes.
Yep.
And then the rest of your bench is absolute garbage. Luca Vildoza, Rajon Tucker,
Who's that?
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah.
Like you don't have that deep of a bench anymore,
No.
which is just not gonna cut it when it comes to making the finals. Now, could they benefit off of the Jazz blowing up, right? Because they have a bunch of role players. They could give up a future pick swap if they wanted to. They could. But Chris Middleton is what? Is he 30 at this point?
I think
Oh,
he's getting
Drew
there.
is 30. I know Drew is 32. Like, and Drew's not getting any better.
Yeah.
I don't think Drew's gonna fall off, but like 2 to 3 years, could we see Giannis request a trade?
You know, I don't I don't think so. Because even though that they built that team around him, and they gave up all of their capital, I don't think that he wants to win. But I think it's gonna be something more like um Damian Lillard, where he sticks with the team, um, and Giannis actually had success. They had a championship with him, because the front office was actually competent and getting building blocks around him. Those first round picks for Drew were maybe a bit much, but they were needed. They were absolutely needed to get someone like Drew Holiday. Um, I think that they have 2 to 3 more years with Middleton and Holiday and Giannis as the trio.
I'm not
Um,
confident Middleton and Holiday can last that long.
I
I
yeah,
don't know. I think Middleton is going to fall off quicker than people expect. He's a shot creator. He relies a little bit on his athleticism to blow by people, similar to the way Harden relied on his athleticism. Obviously, Chris Middleton is nowhere near in the same conversation as Harden.
yep,
Drew has aged really well, but also we've seen in the playoffs the last like 2 years compared to when he was on the Pelicans. He used to ball out in the playoffs. He
yeah,
has not been the best in the playoffs anymore.
yeah.
And if
Now
you
he's
don't
more of a
have that
defensive guy
consistency,
in the
Mhm.
playoffs.
In the playoffs, it's like, okay, he's going to be that playmaking 3 and D kind of guy, which is acceptable if you have that scoring help. And if Chris Middleton falls off, you no longer have that scoring help. And then you're asking more of Drew Holiday.
Yeah,
I question how they're gonna do it. And you compared him to Damian Lillard, right? Damian had that team of Greg Oden, um, what is it, Brandon Roy, LaMarcus Aldridge. They all got injured. They all left. And then he had that one year where it was nobody there.
yep,
They drafted CJ. They drafted CJ. So should the Bucks be looking to go out and draft their CJ?
Um, with
Should
what
they be like?
they
Should they be going to get? They need to hit. Need to hit really well because otherwise
yeah.
you're going to fast forward 2 to 3 years. Your bench is trash. You have nobody but Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton because Bobby Portis is gone. Wesley Matthews is aged. Unless you're going to continue to have people take pay cuts to come to play with in Milwaukee, I don't think there's much you can do.
No, and especially because Milwaukee just it doesn't seem like even with the success that they've had with Giannis there, I don't see it as a good free agent destination. That's because what didn't they traded for Chris Middleton? Did they? I believe
No,
they
they
did.
drafted Chris Middleton
Did they?
as a second rounder, unless they got him from the
Oh,
Pistons or
yes,
something.
it was from the
Is that it?
Pistons.
I think that was on draft night. Hold on.
It might have been. And then they traded for Drew Holiday. Um, but I don't, and maybe it's just like my mind, but I just can't picture Giannis in a different jersey. I just don't think that he would want to, and
On July
it's
31st, 2013, Middleton was traded along with Brandon Knight and Viet. I'm not going to try and pronounce that for Brandon Jennings.
wow.
Just such a Brandon Jennings, Brandon Knight are two of like the most only were ever good in 2K players
Yeah.
we've ever seen.
Yep. Um. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting with a lot of these eliminated playoff teams, especially because we're gonna have two more to talk about in the coming week or two, with either Miami, Boston, Dallas, or Golden State.
Guarantee you it's Dallas. If the Warriors
It's
blow
yeah,
this lead, they will never live that down.
yep.
And Luca will be if Luca comes back 3-0, the best player in the league. I don't care what people say.
I
I think that'll be clear.
I think that's
I
a
think
very
he's
fair
top
argument.
three right now, and I think Giannis is currently better. And
Yeah,
I think there's an argument for a guy like Embiid or Jokic to be better than Luca. But
no one's done what Luca has the possibility to do, and I think if
nobody's
anyone,
done what Luca does currently.
yeah,
Nobody carried their team. Like Jalen Brunson and Spencer Dinwiddie
yeah,
would be like the fifth best player on the 76ers, on the Warriors, on like all these teams. They're not that great.
yep.
Um, but I do love me some Jalen Brunson. I'm so happy with that prediction. I said he was going to be good when he was drafted. I'm never going to let that one go.
Yeah. All right. And so obviously all of these limited playoff teams are going to have a lot of questions, and obviously as the offseason goes on, we're going to continue to talk about them as things progress. But the last thing on our schedule for today is the Lakers head coaching position. And so
I'm not taking the head coaching position. They offered
yeah.
it to me. I'm not taking it.
No,
I'm not taking that.
so
Coaching LeBron is a very specific role, right? You got to be prepared to be fired when he leaves and be
yeah.
confident in your abilities to go out and get another job. So Tyronn Lue is one of the only Tyronn Lue and Eric Spoelstra are like the only LeBron coaches who have survived in the league.
Yeah.
Frank Vogel got fired from the Kings and Alvin Gentry replaced him. I don't think you could even name LeBron's head coaches in the early 2000s.
I have no clue.
Exactly. You have to be confident, so confident that it's not going to damage your reputation at like you're willing to take the job. Now, you know who I think is willing to take the job because it won't damage his reputation any more than it's already been damaged?
Who?
Doc Rivers.
Doc Rivers.
Because you know what? You know what? Nobody has respect for Doc Rivers anymore.
No, no one.
And it's rightfully so. The guy has blown like 20
Yes.
million 3-1 leads. The guy has he underperformed with something that was deemed a super team.
Yep.
The Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Rajon Rondo
They won one
team
championship.
won one championship.
They
That
won
team was
one.
deemed like a super team, right?
Yeah.
They won one, and they were there multiple times.
And
They
he
should have won more.
and he
They should
always
have.
tries to back up the reasoning behind his losses.
Instead of just doing better.
Yeah.
It's like, come on,
It
bro.
was with
I
the
don't want to
Orlando
hear it.
Magic. What was
We
it?
shouldn't have been up 3-1.
Yeah.
Like
We shouldn't have
bro.
been up 3-1.
It's a miracle I got
team-
my team there anyway.
Yeah.
The team just simply wasn't that good, bro.
Yeah, and then he said, I can't remember if it was after the Sixers were eliminated this year, but he said, what was it? When I came here, no one expected Philadelphia to be anywhere. They
That is so wrong. That is so wrong.
they could have gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals if it wasn't for a Kawhi shot with Brett Brown and Jimmy Butler and Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, all of that. They were somewhere. And now with Doc Rivers, the 76ers are second round exit teams. I don't know.
I mean, technically with Jimmy Butler, they were a second round exit team as well. But like,
yes.
but they underperformed as Kawhi hit that one shot, right?
Yep.
They were a second. I think the Raptors or the Sixers win the title that year.
Yes.
If you want me to be honest, like I think the Sixers win the title that year if they beat the Raptors and Kawhi misses that shot. I think the Warriors' injuries just made it so that either team could win the finals. I think Juwan Howard, who was offered to be interviewed for the job, who also had such a damaged reputation due to the literal punching of an opposing head coach. Bro, a guy who punched a head coach didn't want to take your job,
Yes.
even though he knows damn well he's probably never going to get another
Yeah.
opportunity.
And okay, let's be
Because of
real
that
here.
incident.
I do want to say I think Juwan Howard is not only a great coach in terms of success, but just as a personality. I believe it was after it was during the March Madness. Tennessee had just lost, and he was consoling one of the players on Tennessee. He's a great guy for things like that. I think that the heat of the moment got to him like that.
I agree.
I don't think that it
but-
should. I don't think it should reflect how people treat him. But still,
I-
after that, and he
The average
declined.
Lakers fan, the only thing they're going to know about him
Yes.
is that punching incident.
Yes.
Oh, it's sad. Nobody wants the Lakers job because they know they're going to be a scapegoat if anything bad happens. And you
Yep.
know what? They're 100% right because how many past head coaches have been the scapegoat for the Lakers? It's literally every other year,
Yes.
unless they win the championship, that the coach is scapegoated. The only one who lasted was Frank Vogel, and everyone knew he should have been fired years ago.
Yep.
So they waited too long with him.
I think that
And like 10 games into the year, they're like, you're done.
Yeah, I think that the Lakers right now, they have no future. I think that they're in turmoil, and nobody wants to go play for them. I think that they're in turmoil.
I don't know.
without a
That might
direction.
age bad. That might age bad.
might
You wanna
age
know
bad.
why? Because Zach LaVine, everyone's saying he's going to interview with the Lakers,
Yeah.
and if he does, and Russell Westbrook gets moved, some weird things could happen, and we could see the Lakers with absolutely zero bench, but LeBron, AD, and Zach LaVine, and that, in my opinion, is enough to make the playing game.
At least,
That's enough to make the playing game. I'm not sure how far you're going to go, but just given how good the West has gotten with like Luka and
Yeah.
the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies and the
Pelicans.
Pelicans and the Warriors and the Suns who are still going to be good enough,
Yeah.
right? I think the Lakers, the smart thing would just be to tank. Like, accept.
Yes.
Just get rid of Braun, get rid of AD, and accept the fact that you're going to be bad for 4 years, and then you're gonna bounce back. You're gonna sign the next. You're gonna sign like 8 or what, I don't know, right? Like you're gonna sign Melo. I hate putting out these names because every single fan is gonna get mad that I
Yeah.
said it. But like you're gonna wait and you're gonna sign one of those young guys who is super frustrated with his disappointing team, and you're gonna be on top.
Yeah, and I think that trading Braun is such a weird thought, but he
But it's not
even
because he's
said,
bad. It's because they just don't really have a choice. It's like,
yeah,
what you're really gonna run it back with Russ and a bad head coach and injury-prone Anthony Davis? It just doesn't seem like a smart decision.
and he even said that he wouldn't. I don't. I don't know if he specifically said that or if it was just reports coming out. Maybe it was the All Star game getting to him, but he said that he'd be open to a return to Cleveland.
That was not. That was a real report.
Yeah,
They don't. In the, you know what the thing is? I think if LeBron demanded to go somewhere,
he also said
I
Golden
think he could
State.
get them.
He wants to play with Steph Curry, which is not
Which
going to
doesn't
happen.
mean which doesn't mean Golden State. Like I don't
Yeah,
think that's ever gonna happen. I
it
think
won't.
it's like oh Curry, come play with the Lakers. Fuck off, LeBron. That's not happening. I think
Yeah,
I think the Cavs return is the most likely. He's already done it once. I don't know if fans want him, but like I think it's the most likely place for him to go
I don't
because
even know
front
if he'll play
offices
well.
want LeBron. I mean,
I don't know if he'd play well um, with Cleveland, and I think that they've already established
the
like
trade is really simple though. That's the
yeah,
thing. It's Colin Sexton, Kevin Love, and draft picks. Because you know what? If he demands to go somewhere, you don't have that option, which is another reason why they should trade him.
yeah,
For he demands saying, "I'm out of here. I'm not playing another game for you. Send me to Cleveland." And then they're not even going to give you the draft picks because why
yeah,
should they? LeBron said, "I'm going here regardless."
yeah. I just feel
The
like
league will not allow you to waste a year of Braun. The league will not allow that.
yeah, and when he left for the first time to go to Miami, they were in turmoil for a few years. Then they got Kyrie Irving, and they started to build something, and then LeBron came back. They won
Which is my
championships.
point, which is kind of my point with Giannis. I think he could leave for 2 to 3 years. I think the Bucks could draft really well, and then Giannis could be back. But I think that at a certain point, Drew and Chris Middleton are going to age so much, and it's not going to be worth to have them on their roster anymore, especially at that cap hit.
Yep.
35, 36 million, 38 million. It's not worth it for two players who are aging and are going to be bad pretty soon.
Yeah. Um, but just my prediction, or
Is LeBron
yeah. Well, I think
think LeBron stays.
for I think he stays, and for the head coaching position, uh, I honestly don't know. I think one way or another they're gonna get Doc Rivers, and that may just be my hope because I want him out of Philadelphia. I don't know who the answer would be for Philadelphia at
You're
head coach,
you're hoping too much.
but here,
You're like doing the hypothetical. Who's the answer for the Sixers when Doc Rivers
but
gets sent to LA because you really don't want Doc.
I
But like I understand it. If
yeah
Doc was my head coach, I wouldn't want him either.
yeah, but I think that the Lakers have openly said that they want Doc Rivers, and they've narrowed it down to three candidates,
It's
and then
Darnell Ham, right? The Warriors assistant.
yeah, and then
Which is I like that. I like Darnell Ham. I think that's it. But I also like Kenny Atkinson,
yeah,
who I think never should have been fired, by the way. Nets fired him because I don't think he got along well with Kyrie and KD. That's like the only reason.
probably
And
not.
you know what? You know what? I can't blame him because he had a great team. He had that Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, D'Angelo Russell, Jared Allen team. That team was a playoff team. That team did more than the Nets have ever done.
Yep.
Nets got swept and won one playoff series.
And Steve
That
Nash isn't the answer either.
No, he's not, but he's going to be there because
Yep.
he's an all-time great. That's the thing about all-time greats. They stick around, right? They're like LeBron, he may not be the answer for the Lakers. He's an all-time great, so they're going to keep him around. And that's just, I guess, the thing with Drew and Chris Middleton, they're all-time greats at their respective jobs. And they're going to stick around because they got paid, and that's just how it works. It's
Yep.
how it works.
Yep. And
That's all I have to say.
yeah, I think that's about it. So do you have any
Kenny
closing
Atkinson
thoughts?
deserves. Kenny Atkinson never should have been fired from the Nets. The Nets are a poverty organization. The Lakers should hire him, and then the Lakers will win a championship.
Okay. And yeah, and my closing thought is Doc Rivers really likes veteran players, and just look at the Lakers.
Celtics in 7.
Heat in 6. All right, everyone. That's the end of this episode. We're gonna have a few more things coming up in the very near future as the NBA season comes to a close. We're actually going to be having NBA draft prospects coming up, so make sure to subscribe, like, and comment because those are going to be coming out very soon. And once again, just make sure you subscribe, and we'll thank you all for watching. Bye bye.